Map of Canada showing the increases in GHG emissions by province/territory in 2008, compared to the 1990 base year. Canada was active in the negotiations that led to the Kyoto Protocol in 1997, and the Liberal government that signed the accord in 1997 also ratified it in Parliament in 2002. Canada's Kyoto target was a 6% total reduction by 2012 compared to 1990 levels of 461 megatons, MT, Government of Canada, GC, 1994. However, in spite of some efforts, federal indecision led to increases in greenhouse gas emissions, GHG, since then. Between the base year, 1990, and 2008, Canada's GHG increased by around 24.1%. Debates surrounding the implementation of Kyoto in Canada are informed by the nature of relationships between national, provincial, territorial, and municipal jurisdictions. The federal government can negotiate multilateral agreements and enact legislation to respect their terms. Since then, no federal government has had the courage to implement an intergovernmental, long-term, cohesive energy plan. Some argue that since 2006, when Prime Minister Stephen Harper took office, his strong opposition to the Kyoto Accord, his market-centered policies and deliberate indifference contributed to a dramatic rise in GHG emissions in 2007, Climate Action Network Canada. Prime Minister Harper opposed the imposition of binding targets at the 2007 Bali conference unless such targets were also imposed on such countries as China and India, which are exempt from GHG reduction requirements under the terms of the Kyoto Protocol. Although Canadian GHG emissions fell in 2008 and 2009 due to the global recession, Canada's emissions are expected to increase again with the economic recovery, fueled largely by the expansion of the oil sands. In 2009, Canada signed the Copenhagen Accord, which, unlike the Kyoto Accord, is a non-binding agreement. Canada agreed to reduce its GHG emissions by 17% from its 2005 levels by 2020, which translates to a reduction of 124 megatons, MT. Environment Minister Peter Kent argued that, the Kyoto Protocol does not cover the world's largest two emitters, the United States and China, and therefore cannot work. In 2010, Canada, Japan, and Russia said they would not accept new Kyoto commitments. Kent argued that since Canada could not meet targets, it needed to avoid the $14 billion in penalties for not achieving its goals. States for which the emissions are not covered by the Kyoto Protocol, the US and China, have the largest emissions, being responsible for 41% of the Kyoto Protocol. Canadian Council of Chief Executives VP John Dillon argued, November 22, 2011, that a further extension of Kyoto would not be effective as many countries, not just Canada, were not on track to meet their 1997 Kyoto commitments to reduce emissions. He called for a comprehensive, long-term global agreement that includes major emitters like the US, China, India and Brazil. Dillon regards as positive the series of non-binding pledges in Copenhagen by both developed and developing countries to lower emissions or improve energy intensity, leading to a more flexible structure that might eventually attract broader participation and more meaningful action. That means investing proactively and strategically in energy efficiency, low-carbon energy infrastructure and innovative new technologies that will ensure a more environmentally sustainable energy system going forward. The Bill C-38 Jobs, Growth, and Long-Term Prosperity Act passed in June 2012, informally referred to as Bill C-38, a 2012 Omnibus Bill and Budget Implementation Act. Bill C-38 was given royal assent on June 29, 2012. Repealed the Kyoto Protocol Implementation Act, legislation, which required government accountability and results reporting on climate change policies, May 2012. According to the report entitled Environment, GHG Emissions Per Capita, July 2011, Canada ranks 15th out of 17 countries for greenhouse gas, GHG, emissions per capita and earns a D grade. Canada's per capita GHG emissions increased 3.2% between 1990 and 2008, while total GHG emissions in Canada grew 24%. The largest contributor to Canada's GHG emissions is the energy sector, which includes power generation, heat and electricity, transportation, and fugitive sources. Canada is a high-tech industrial society with a trillion-dollar economy and a market-oriented economic system, pattern of production, and affluent living standards similar to the United States.